All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council regular meeting for Monday, October 2nd. No study session items for tonight. I call this meeting to order. If you're able to do so, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, City Clerk. If you could please take roll call.
Yes, good evening. Member Anderson?
Present.
Member Neunenkamp?
Present.
Member Kolnick? Member
Present.
Russell? Oh, present. Member Kolnick, are you online? No? Oh, I thought I heard something. Okay.
Yes, I'm present.
Oh, okay, perfect. Member Russell?
Present.
Sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Present.
Member Woodward?
Present.
Mayor Sierra?
Present.
All seven present.
Thank you.
Sorry, can someone have Member Kolnick change his name on the Zoom so that he doesn't show up as Joe Anderson?
Yeah, Member Kolnick, the link that you received from Joe Anderson, if you could just change your name to the Zoom or to the Teams meeting to your name.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Kolnick. Moving on to agenda item 5, this is consideration of minutes from the previous session. Any changes to the minutes from the regular City Council meeting of September 18th? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting on September 18th?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Neunenkamp. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving to the minutes of the special City Council meeting on September 25th. Any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 25th?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Neunenkamp. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item 6, we have several recognitions and proclamations for tonight. I think is the Chief here? If not, Deputy Chief Bender, I think I may ask you to come up to recognize. I'm going to read them both if you don't mind, Deputy Chief. Or did you want to take them one at a time? Okay. So we have Deputy Chief Fender as well as Division Chief Reed here tonight. Deputy Chief, do you have something to say before I read the recognition?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of Council, we're just ecstatic as a police department that we're being recognized for a couple of fairly large accomplishments that our entire team at the police department have put a lot of work into. Frankly, we want to be one of the most transparent police departments. We want to be incredibly on the edge of doing just best practices throughout the state, and we're just very excited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief. Division Chief, anything you want to add, or?
No, it's a really an honor to be up here in front of you, Mayor, Council, to be recognized for this. Our agency has put a lot of hard work into these proclamations, and it just shows that we're on the cutting edge in a very progressive organization.
Thank you very much, Division Chief. I agree as well. So the first recognition I want to read is the recognition of the Englewood Police Department for taking the One Mind campaign pledge, sponsored by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. So in February of 2023, the Englewood Police Department took the International Association of Chiefs of Police One Mind campaign pledge. This campaign seeks to ensure successful interactions between law enforcement and individuals with mental health conditions. 19 police departments in Colorado have taken the pledge, and 8 have met the requirements to complete the pledge. To accomplish this pledge, the police department trained 100% of the agency's sworn police officers in mental health first aid, and at least 20% of the officers are trained in crisis response training, or CIT. In fact, 42% of all Englewood police officers are CIT trained. The police department has a clearly established partnership and MOU with the All Health Network, and robust policies in place that address interactions with persons in a mental health crisis. The International Association of Chiefs of Police recognized the Englewood Police Department, demonstrating their commitment to the safety and well-being of all the members of our community. And obviously, Deputy Chief, thank you very much for coming tonight to recognize this award. I'll read the second one as well. The second one is for the Colorado Association, let me see here. Recognition of the Englewood Police Department for receiving accreditation by the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police. And so this is for the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police first adopted a professional standards accreditation program for its members agencies in 1986. To receive the professional status for accreditation, organizations must have professional standards in place. The accreditation process examines the policies and procedures in place at the department to ensure that the citizens of Englewood are receiving excellent police services. This is an in-depth process that certifies the agency for a period of 5 years. The accreditation process ensures that the citizens of Englewood receive legitimate and professional responses to crime trends and community concerns. And I'm not sure, Deputy Chief and Division Chief, actually, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to take a picture of with both of you just receiving recognition for this. So not sure if I'm going to get the opportunity to do this much longer, but I'd definitely like to do it tonight if possible. So thank you. Thank you very much, Division Chief and Deputy Chief, for that honor. And honestly, just a few words, just because, again, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the privilege to say this, but it's been an honor and a privilege to work with the police department over the last 4 years. If I don't get the opportunity to say this in the future, I definitely want to say this at this point. But obviously, we just have had a great working relationship over the 5.5 years that I've been on council, and just appreciate what you and your staff do for this city. You guys have been very cooperative with council in terms of just meeting the needs that we are looking for, obviously based off the needs of the community. So I can't thank you guys enough for the work that for the partnership that we've had over the last 5.5 years. So can't say anything but great things about your force and your staff. So please pass my words along to them as well. So thank you. Next item up for, let me see where I put that sheet. Next one is a proclamation for Conflict Resolution Month. And actually, just a word for members of the audience, we are aware that there is no air conditioning at the moment. It is being worked on. There does seem to be like a fuse out, but staff is working on that, so hopefully we can get that up and running here soon. So Conflict Resolution Month Proclamation. Whereas conflict resolution encompasses mediation, arbitration, facilitation, collaborative decision-making, restorative processes, and other responses to differences. And whereas the conflict resolution processes empower individuals, families, communities, organizations, and businesses to foster communication and devise solutions that are acceptable to the needs and interests of all parties involved. And whereas conflict resolution is taught and practiced by citizens in many school systems, universities, and graduate programs throughout Colorado and the world as a way of solving disputes. And whereas community-based programs fairly and equitably resolve neighborhood and community conflicts, thereby repairing harms and strengthening local relationships. And whereas professional associations of conflict mediators and community-based practitioners promote peaceful and creative resolutions to disputes, repairing harms, and restoring relationship. Now, therefore, I, Othaniel Sierra, Mayor for the City of Englewood, do hereby proclaim October 2023 Conflict Resolution Month in Englewood, Colorado, and I urge all our residents to join together to support this effort and participate in monthly activities. Moving on to 6D, this is Code Enforcement Month Proclamation. I don't believe we have Mr. Dave Lewis here tonight, but I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas code enforcement officers provide for safety and welfare of the citizens throughout the United States through the enforcement of local codes or ordinances facing various issues of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life safety. And whereas code enforcement officers often have a challenging and demanding role and often do not receive recognition for the job that they do in improving living and working conditions for residents and businesses of Englewood. And whereas code enforcement officers often have a high visibility role in the city of Englewood, where they serve and regularly interact with a variety of state officials, county officials, first responders, legislative boards, commissions, agencies, and bodies. Whereas the American Association of Code Enforcement was established in 1988 for the purpose of providing ongoing training and support for code enforcement professionals working in the United States, and seeks to recognize and honor code enforcement officers and professionals all across the United States and bring awareness to the importance of code enforcement to communities across the United States. And now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Othaniel Sierra, Mayor for the City of Englewood, and the City Council hereby proclaim October 2023 as National Code Compliance Month in the City of Englewood, and encourage all residents to consider recognizing and expressing their appreciation for the dedication and service by the individuals who serve as our code enforcement officers.
Mayor.
Deputy Chief.
And Mayor and Council, if I may, I wanted to speak on behalf of Code Manager Dave Lewis, who is actually at the National Code Enforcement Officers Conference this week, actually teaching some classes, and is very incredibly proud to represent the City of Englewood at this conference, and the accomplishments that his team has made over the years. And at the police department, with code enforcement being part of our team, I just wanted to stand up and publicly thank that team for the job they do and to recognize them.
Deputy Chief, thank you very much for the words.
Thank you.
Mayor, I also wanted to go back a proclamation for Conflict Resolution Month.
Yes.
We have Ames here to
Ah,
just
yeah.
say a few words, so
Yes, please.
introduce yourself.
Apologies. No, it should make it green. I'm not sure which button it is, but there we go.
Here we go. Hello, I'm Ames Stenson. I'm the Englewood Municipal Court Restorative Justice Program Manager. Just wanted to say a couple words about Conflict Resolution Month. So I actually wanted to invite Superintendent Joanna Polson to come up and just say a few words, and then I'll say thanks to all the folks involved in this. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent.
Good evening, how are you? Well, it's with great pride that I share with you our excitement to support this proclamation and partner with the City of Englewood for Conflict Resolution Month. The theme this year is Listen Like You Mean It. Conflict Resolution Month in Colorado began in 2007 as a local initiative in an ambitious effort to ensure that Colorado is the most civil state in the Union. Groups of energetic and dynamic individuals have come together each year to promote and celebrate productive problem solving in our state. What does this mean for our students in Englewood? We celebrate Conflict Resolution Month in a variety of ways. At the elementary level, we have board members, various community members, staff, and teachers reading and discussing different books with students. All of the books are featured then in the school libraries. And at the middle and high school levels, we engage in a police-youth dialogue with small group interactions and conversations. The theme, Listen Like You Mean It, is celebrated in Englewood schools, and we appreciate your support and partnership for this important annual campaign that encourages constructive problem solving. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Polson.
Thank you. I also just wanted to add a special acknowledgement and thanks to the planning team for the Conflict Resolution Month activities. So we've got a list of activities coming up. You can check that out on the city website and just search for Conflict Resolution Month. It'll pull up a variety of activities. So just wanted to thank folks from the Englewood School District, specifically Marie LeBlanc and Tama Wood. We've got Crystal Essman from the Englewood Police Department, City of Englewood Communication person Madeline Hinkfis. We've got the Greater Englewood Chamber of Commerce, Lindsay Runyon, the Englewood Public Library, Corinne Barnett. We also have an additional partner of Tammy Slifer, who's been involved in our community in quite a variety of ways, as you all might know. And then the municipal court RJ program and many of our volunteers has been involved as well. So just wanted to name those folks and thank you all for your recognition of this month.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the words as well. Moving on to the next proclamation, which is Indigenous People Day Proclamation, whereas the City of Englewood recognizes that our nation was founded upon the principles that all people are created equal and that each person has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas the Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in America, and whereas Indigenous people occupied and cared for the lands encompassed by Englewood, Arapahoe County, Colorado, and the United States since before recorded history, and whereas Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations have been adopted by cities and states across the United States, as of 2020, 14 states and more than 130 cities celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, and whereas in a 2016 report prepared by the Governor of Colorado's Commissions to Study American Indian Representation in Public Schools, Commission Chair Clement Frost of the Southern Ute Tribe called for the state to recognize the role of American Indians in Colorado's history and to ensure that this history is taught comprehensively and accurately. And whereas the City of Englewood recognizes and values Indigenous peoples and their descendants' many contributions to our community, both historical and contemporary. And whereas the city established the staff-based Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee made up of 19 staff members from all departments that unanimously approved a recommendation of Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation. And now therefore it be proclaimed that I, Othaniel Sierra, Mayor for the City of Englewood, and the City Council hereby proclaim the second Monday of October Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Englewood and urge all citizens to become more aware of the history and contributions of Indigenous people in Colorado and the United States. So thank you very much for the DEI committee on presenting that as well. And the next proclamation is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas in 2022, an estimated 287,850 new cases of invasive breast cancer were expected to be diagnosed among people in the United States, as well as 51,400 new cases of non-invasive breast cancer. And whereas breast cancer is the second most common cancer in women and one of the leading causes of cancer-related deaths. And whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is an annual campaign to increase awareness of this disease. And whereas National Breast Cancer Month is a time to focus on increasing public knowledge in the importance of early detection of breast cancer diagnosis and treatment and encourage individuals to have a plan to detect the disease in its early stages. And whereas access to screenings and early detection is an essential component in the fight against breast cancer, and whereas critical research efforts over time yielded great progress in how breast cancer is diagnosed and treated, which produced a steady increase in survival rates for those suffering from this disease. Whereas during the month of October, with pink displayed throughout the community, we stand in solidarity with breast cancer survivors and reaffirm our commitment to raising awareness of this disease. And now therefore it be proclaimed that I, Othaniel Sierra, Mayor for the City of Englewood, and the City Council hereby proclaim October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Englewood and encourage all members of the community to stand with family and friends and recognize all who have joined their loved ones in fighting this battle with breast cancer and to educate themselves on ways to improve the quality of life for all Americans affected by breast cancer and one day defeat this terrible disease. So thank you very much for that as well. Last item under item 6 is just the final appointments to the Affordable Housing Task Force, which includes Englewood Residents, under renters Amber Reyes and Sophia King, under affordable housing developer Kory Whitaker with the Habitat for Humanity, as well as Englewood business owners Joseph Phillips with Fellow Traveler. I want to say that we have a name missing for this, or did we appoint Mr. Yates to the business owners as well? But Member Anderson, did you have something to add?
I thought we had consensus to appoint Mr. Yates.
Yeah, so Mr. Yates should also be one of the business owners. I'll just make a note here. But do we need a formal vote, or is it just okay that we can just add Mr. Yates? I guess members of council, does anybody have a disagreement with adding Mr. Yates to the business owners? Go ahead, Member Nunekamp.
I was just going to say, I believe we voted on this last time, and so I do think we should vote to be consistent.
Sounds good. Thank you, Member Noonan. Member Russell.
We did not vote on this. We had consensus approval.
Okay.
So tonight is the night that we're voting on it. Because it wasn't posted, I think maybe we should add him the next time.
Or we can make a motion to amend to add Mr. Yates tonight.
Okay.
So I think that probably would be the best way. Thank you, Member Russell. Anyone want to make a motion to add the appointment of the Affordable Housing Task Force members?
So moved.
Go ahead, thank you, Member Noonan. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And can we get a motion to amend to add Mr. Stephen Yates as an Englewood business owner as well?
I move to amend the motion to add Stephen Yates as a business owner on the Affordable Housing Task Force.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Noonan. Any further comments? Can we please vote?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonan,
Aye.
Member Kolnick,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. And can we just vote on the motion as amended?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonan,
Aye.
Member Kolnick,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you, everyone. Now moving on to agenda item 7. This is recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled public comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. This is an opportunity for the public to address city council. There is an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner, and council may ask questions of clarification, but there won't be any dialogue. Please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. Tonight, Member Noonan is going to be giving the response. Up first is C. Ann Dickerson, an Englewood resident, here to address council. Good evening, Ms. Dickerson. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Mayor, who has response tonight?
Chelsea. Member Noonan has the response tonight. Go ahead, Ms. Dickerson.
You might have to turn your mic on. Oh. Cian.
Ms. Dickerson, it looks like maybe that podium actually, it looks like everything's off right now. Give us 1 second, Ms. Dickerson.
Oh, okay.
What about the timer as well? Is that perfect?
C. Ann Dickerson Bates Logan.
Thank you.
On none 25, you, council, proved me and the rest of the recall signers correct. That was quite a pathetic performance, trying to obscure and prevent opposition by changing location, time, and mixing up study session with council meeting. You pushed through the worst ordinance that you ever have, and you did it by ignoring citizens, the Charter, Article 32, Article 58 and 60, and Title II codes about directing staff and P&Z and Board of Adjustments and Appeals. And you revealed again, as you have many times, your incompetence and lack of knowledge. You ranted that the Charter should not be obeyed in the matter of returning your amendments to P&Z for consideration because it's a stupid result and therefore unenforceable, which is another proof of your incompetence, power hunger, and irrationality. You insisted on obeying the Charter in the matter of filling Wink's seat, which shows you only invoke the Charter when it suits your purpose. When Joe Jefferson resigned, the seat went to a special election after interviewing all, and it was something like 15 different people who applied. And the seat was unfilled for months. Appointing an unqualified, but I'll vote for code next without question, is a ridiculous result. Enforcement of many charter sections in code yield anti-constitutional and anti-property rights and very stupid results, and yet you pass them anyway. Case in point, the changes to Title 12 regarding utilities, curb stop locations, and property rights.
The definitions are contradictory, and ownership and responsibility for equipment violate property rights and common sense. More has been revealed as of the botched meeting on September 25th. At the end of the bogus meeting, the city manager proudly announced that the city qualified to receive funds for the affordability project. Who authorized or directed the application? When did you do it? Is it under Prop 23 or is it federal funds? What are the requirements of this funding? What are the taxpayers, i.e. voters, saddled with? And what is affordable? According to the median income standards, that would be $80,000 income. Who are you trying to house? Your language and slander and disrespect of citizens are hateful, yet you self-righteously claim the recall and opposition to Code Next is hysterics and hate. You slandered citizens and invoked claims to being a pastor to excuse your behavior and language. So tell us, what kind of pastor are you? Do you even know the new commandment given by Jesus in John 13:34-35 and John 15:13? To summarize, love one another as I have loved you, and no greater love than a man has to lay down his life for his friends. What is your statement, love thy neighbor, is a duty of city government to that. Your behavior, misogyny, and pastorship has no place in Englewood government. All three of you are subject to recall, support each other, and the mayor doubled down on the slander. You vote together with your hand-picked replacement. You should all be recalled and not re-elected, whichever comes first.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson, for your words tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Up next is Martin Borum, an Englewood resident, here to address council regarding Code Next. Did I get the last name correct?
Pardon?
Is it Mr. Borum? Did I get the last
Yes.
name correct?
Rhymes with forum.
Good evening, Mr. Borum. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
My name is Martin Vorum, and I live on East Cornell Avenue in Arapahoe Acres. And I have comments about the process of approving and implementing the Code Next process as a way of getting to the unified city code, design code. And I walked over there, and I'll walk over here just a second. Those are copies of my notes if anybody in the audience wants them. So I'm reminded of the 1992 presidential election when Ross Perot ran, and he nominated a retired admiral who presented himself for vice president candidacy. And he showed up at the convention, and his opening line was, "Who am I and why am I here?" And that's kind of where I'm at tonight. It's accidental that I'm here in a way. I got a bingo card in the mail about a month ago that said it urged me not to vote in favor of a recall. And I almost never make a decision about anything without knowing what I'm doing, once in a while. But so I set about trying to find out what was going on with the Code Next as related to the unified code. And I had a terrible time, which is, I could be dyslexic, but I worked real hard trying to find the literature I want to understand Code Next and where it's going with the unified code. I had very little luck. My notes say I didn't find anything of substance. I didn't find what I really wanted to find, which was some material that would help me understand the justification for approving Code Next and how to work it into the unified code. And I'll get in a moment to how I view that. But after looking for a while, hours for information, I cheated, and I made a couple of phone calls to people in the city government, and I got some good help there and found some information. Specifically, I found an August 21st set of notes from a meeting that you folks held regarding Code Next and giving an update on the history. And then there's a September 21st summary of the project status. And those are both helpful. So on the back of my notes, I've given the shortest biography I've ever produced, telling you where I've been, what I've done, and why I think I can comment on this stuff. My view in wanting to know about what the process is to validate or to approve or disapprove of Code Next leading to the Unified Code is to understand where it's going. And what I cannot find, based on my own experience doing lots and lots of engineering studies and cost studies and yada, 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 is where the code implementation will lead us in terms of what it's going to cost, looking down the road, what the change in population density, which is anticipated, even fostered to some extent by the Code Next and the Unified Design Code, where that's going to lead us. Now, again, getting back to my proviso at the beginning of this, it's possible that such analysis exists, and I just didn't find it. But what I want to do is encourage the city to take the approach that, following up on the approval of Code Next and implementation of the new Unified Design Code, that it takes a decades-long perspective on this. And I likened it to a train wreck, or to a potential train wreck, wherein a train that's miles long and moving slowly, and in this case can go take different directions along the way. So before I run out of time, I want to summarize that by saying that, excuse me, what I think we want to look for, and correct me if you would please, that we already have these activities lined up and ready to go, is taking a look at the feasibility issues, the sustainability issues, the cost issues, the tax issues, and et cetera. Now, those were called out in the movement, in the referendum suggestions for the recall election, and I hope they will be followed up on. So, wrapping up real quickly.
Mr. Vorum, your 5 minutes are up.
Okay.
Thank you for your time tonight. Any questions for Mr. Vorum? Go ahead, Member Nunekamp.
Hi, Mr. Vorum. Thanks for being here this evening. When you were doing your research looking for Code Next, did you find the Englewood Engaged website?
I found a document, and in fact, I think I mentioned the August 21st public meeting notes and the September 21st project status. And one of those has the term Englewood engagement or something in it. So yeah, I'm aware of those. And I searched through those and I didn't find any reference to what I'm talking about in terms of looking down the road toward the hard part of implementation of the design standards.
Great. I'll respond to that more in council response. Thank you.
I couldn't understand that.
I'll respond when I have council response at the end of public comment, the information that I have for you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
See no further questions. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Mr. Vorum.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Up next is Jan Wypert, an Englewood resident, here to address council. Good evening, Ms. Wypert. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Jan Wypert, Federal and Bellevue. I thought it was interesting we have a listen like you mean it being said tonight, because if city council had listened like you mean it, we may never have started the recall. But that aside, some things I would like to see happen in the future. Rita, I sure hope you stay on council. One is an invocation. There's no reason we can't go back to inviting God in here, and I think that should come back to city council meetings. The other thing is, as I was looking at what's happening with the election again and the cost on it, which has been mentioned, and the cost on the Code Next, what came to mind again is I've worked as a controller for a large nonprofit, and I've worked for other companies, and they usually had accounting guidelines that they followed, and one included over a certain threshold, bids were always taken, and we required 3 bids minimum. Englewood apparently doesn't have that, and there should be accounting guidelines that say over a threshold, certain bids should be taken. That as an owner, as an individual, I do that. If you go out and buy a fence from the first person you run into, you may pay 10 times what you have to other places. So that came to mind today, and I don't know that I've asked that. I thought I did once, but I don't think I've seen that talked about again. We need bids. One of the things is, if there had been bids done on this election group, that CRS, they don't have cameras. We can't watch and see if what they're doing is okay. They're not reaching out to citizens to watch what happens tomorrow. I thought judges were appointed by the city clerk and by her commission. As far as I know, from when I did finally talk to CRS today, they said they appoint the judges. No judges? Come on, guys, what's going on with this election for recall? I don't get it. One other thing I wanted to talk about quickly on a safety issue. Oh, air conditioning. Please get it on for the computer so they don't crash. I know you're working on it. Thank you for saying that. Safety. I had a friend that was at a Home Depot very, very recently, not in Englewood, and they had somebody come up. They said there were like 50 people milling, and somebody came up and they jumped, held onto the truck window. The window was down, and were yakking at him as he was driving, and they kept saying, Venezuela, Venezuela. And I said later, I don't know that they were doing anything nefarious. They probably wanted to work and were hoping you would give them work. But he said there were like 50 people, and they were running up to people as they were bringing goods out, and he didn't think they were stealing, but he couldn't say. And then he said it also happened in Bear Valley. Then he had his truck window up. And then I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, oh, yeah, they're here at the Home Depot on Bellevue and Federal, which is Littleton. But this is coming to Englewood. And there are a couple things I want to say on that. One is I am not against legal immigrants. I think our governor invited these people in by saying we were a sanctuary city. I would like to see the city council put together a letter that says we in Englewood are not a sanctuary city. And to the governor and to we need to stop that so we aren't having this stuff going on here. I figured 5 days of hotel rooms would pay for a plane ticket back to where people are coming from. And most of these countries would take them back. These are people that were released out of prisons, out of mental hospitals in many cases. And that's something our city can do to protect our cities. I also think the police should be aware this is going on and be prepared for potential issues, because when they run out of money on their little cards that they have, then it's going to start getting ugly. We're going to start having violence. We're going to start having more robberies, and our city council should be here to protect us. So please put in place some policies, again, so we don't have people sitting in front of King Supers.
Ms.
Thank
Wyper,
you.
your 5 minutes are up. Thank you for your time. Any questions for Ms. Wyper? Seeing none, thank you again, Ms. Wyper. Up next is Sheila Singer, here to address council. Director Rochelle, any update on the air conditioning? I think I hear something, but I'm not positive if that's the.
Yes, Mayor, it appears it may have taken a surge of power. We do have circulating to get fresh air from outside into the chambers, and the team's still working to get the condensers back online. But right now, it looks like the condenser on one of the roof units may be fried. I should have an update shortly.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Good evening, Ms. Singer.
Hello, give me 1 second. Nice to meet you. Work hard.
Ms. Singer, if you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
My name is Sheila Singer, and I am at Julian and Tufts. I roll is okay. Okay. For those of you that haven't met me before, again, my name is Sheila Singer, and for those of you that have, I'm back. 2 weeks ago when I spoke, I took responsibility for my part in this circus and these monkeys. I step away for 1 week, and what happens? An outright poop show. It was literally nuts last week. I have to say, I'm embarrassed for you and by you. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Crabtree stood before you and spoke not only eloquently, but informatively regarding Code Next. Now, before any of you up there roll your eyes, hear me out. Mr. Crabtree stated that due to the changes made to Code Next in the 11th hour per the city charter, Code Next must be sent back to Planning and Zoning for review. Last Monday, when Code Next was put to a vote, Member Russell correctly pointed out again that Code Next had to be sent back to Planning and Zoning due to the changes. Did that happen? No. Why? Because Mr. Ward stated that it would be ridiculous. So I ask, is the Charter of Englewood ridiculous? Member Ward seems to follow the letter of the law when it suits him, but not when you deem something ridiculous. I would like to also point out that Member Ward voted no on Code Next because he was already assured of Member Kolnick's yes vote. I ask, is this because you, Mr. Ward, know that you could be facing a potential recall, and you think that by voting no on Code Next, your constituents will forgive and forget? That's not how this works. I find it very interesting that both Ms. Hupka and Ms. Prang were disqualified from taking Member Wink's spot because they had already cast votes in favor of Code Next. Yet Mr. Kolnick's position on Code Next was very well known, and he was still selected. Why is this? Is it because he has ties to developers? Is it because he's an engineer? And according to his degree, he knows about infrastructure? What makes someone an expert is being down in the trenches for 20 plus years. When someone comes to you with that kind of experience, Member Ward, one should not be dismissive of that experience and only value what's on a piece of paper. That's judging a book by its cover. And as the city's infrastructure continues to crumble around us, that's on you. I'm sorry, Member Kolnick. I don't believe someone deserves a seat at the table simply because of a piece of paper, the connections they have, and the assured yes vote. That's dirty politicking, if you ask me. 2 weeks ago, Miss Ida May bravely spoke about those she knows that are afraid to speak at council, not because of those of us in the audience, but because of you, council. And for that, council should be ashamed. No matter what someone is coming to council with, our voices need to be heard and respected. No one, and I repeat, no one should be afraid to come here and voice their opinions. It was even more upsetting to hear that Member Anderson wanted to go and speak to voters who said that he was claiming to be a Republican and that he was not for Code Next. He even went so far as to say, "Thanks for the names. Now I know who to talk to." That, sir, sounds like voter intimidation to me. During the meeting on the 11th, I think, Member Sierra, who also serves as the mayor, and Member Anderson claimed that Miss Kathy Naughton wasn't being honest. In layman's terms, they called her a liar. That's beneath the chairs you sit in as members. That's also when Member Anderson famously and notoriously dropped the F-bomb. Now, Mr. Anderson, I personally could care less about you using the F-bomb, but it's probably not very fitting for you as a pastor or a council member. You're human, and at the time, though, you were representing the council. Last but not least, so I don't lose this point again, I would like to point out a point in regarding the comment about the power of the purse. The reason you hold the power of the purse is because we entrusted you with that power of the purse. And just like that, we can take it back. Let's remember, we still have the right to vote in our elected officials who work for us and remove them when they aren't doing the job they're elected to do. And you wonder why there's a recall election coming?
Thank you for your time, Ms. Singer. Any questions from members of council? Members of the public, please hold your applause. Seeing no questions, thanks for your time tonight. Up next is Elaine Holtz. Do I see Elaine Holtz? Okay, not online either? Perfect. Up next is Pamela Beats. Oh, there she is. Good evening, Ms. Beats. Hello, Ms. Beats, if you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Pamela Beats, Delaware and Floyd Council. I'm speaking tonight on your recent vote for high-density zoning in R2 in my neighborhood. Ms. Nienenkamp, you devalued my single-family home. Mr. Ward, you protected your home and neighborhood at the expense of mine. Mr. Anderson, you violated my property rights as a homeowner, a taxpayer, and a citizen. Mr. Sierra, you ruined the equity in my single-family home and my ability to generate wealth and a retirement fund for myself through home ownership. Mr. Woodward and Councilwoman Russell, I want to thank you for having integrity and not indulging in fantasy thinking about affordable housing. Ms. Nienenkamp, you sold me out. Mr. Ward, you sold me out. Mr. Anderson, you sold me out. Mr. Sierra, you sold me out. All of you sold me out. And you sold out every other single-family homeowner in this city. You have kept your secrets about this zoning. You have not informed your constituents. You have not fully let the whole of Englewood know the damage you are doing to this city. You sold me out. You sold me out. You sold me out. You sold me out. And maybe there's others in this chamber tonight that feel that they are sold out or have been sold out or would stand with me and show their support by standing that they've also been sold out by you. And once again, we have 2 members that are willing to fight for us, have integrity, and understand what the laws are in this city. And we have 1 puppet and the rest of you who sold us out. You sold me out for your own agendas. You sold me out for affordable housing that's fantasy thinking. And actually, the national median income is $60,000, not $80,000. And you can bet Englewood is a lot lower. And you know people like me, and many of the people who live here are making considerably less. You sold us all out.
Anything else, Ms. Speets?
I'm speaking listen to what I'm not saying in silence. Listen to what this chamber is saying in silence. Because as many times as myself and other residents have been here, all you thought about was your own agenda. And you sold me out, you sold me out, you sold me out, and you sold me out.
Thank you, Ms. Speets, for your time tonight. Members of the public, please hold your applause. Any questions from this council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight. Up next is Ida Mae Nickel, here to address council. Good evening, Ms. Nickel. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
The 4340 South Pennsylvania. I'm Miss Hari. Yeah. It's not Pennsylvania. That's my old address. Sorry. Anyway, yes, I live on La Penn. Sorry. I worked real hard on a message, and at the last moment I could not, my computer wouldn't work. So I might forget half of what I've already written. But anyway, good evening. And I know most of you know that the difference in the schools, the children that are not in school anymore. Telling a little history story, when my kids were in school, like in 1975, when my son graduated, there was 480 students that graduated that year. And my other son, it was the same, and it was my daughter graduated, it was the same. And it was only from 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. Now they have 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th grades, and they only have 548 kids in the whole 4 grades. And so I'm wondering why that is. Where's our children going? Is it because of all the high rises we're putting up? I believe it is. On the block party, the Englewood block party that I've been to every year, I've done a lot of history things. I've shown pictures, I've told stories. And it is so busy. The young people that are coming in love these little houses. I don't know how many have told me they've redone their house, what they've done to it, what they found. And they're coming to this little city because of the houses and they're more affordable. And you are tearing them all down. How many children, the more high rises you put up, how many more children are we going to lose? In the era of my children, they had, in our yard, we would have 10 kids playing softball, baseball, wrestling, all kinds of things from blocks around, and we didn't have the fences. People talked to each other. What are our kids going to have? What kind of a sidewalk are they going to be able to ride their bikes on? We had a driveway that they all played on. They came when they were little, when they rode their tricycles, and then they rode their bicycles before they could ride their bicycles out on the street. They had wonderful times. And my kids are telling me now, they're in their 60s, what a wonderful childhood they had because they could roam, it was safe. How many of the children today can say that? How many do you know that will be able to ride up and down their driveway and have all of these things to do? And I also found out today, I've talked to a number of people, that there's 17% of our high school kids don't have a place to live. And there are some people that are trying to help them. And I learned a lot today by I went to a funeral today, and I talked to a number of people, and I learned a lot of things I didn't know about Englewood, but they were not very good. And so I know I have some more of my story I'm almost kind of forgetting because I wrote a number of different things. But I'm afraid for our children, our schools. And even though our schools have lost a lot of their children, they're asking, they want more money from us. They built 5 schools, and I talked to a lady that has children in school, and she says 2 of the schools are filled up, and then 1 school they gave for a daycare. And she said, what are we going to do with these other schools that have very few children? So that's the question I asked. You all are for the children. You're for those who are don't have the money, that don't have homes. But still you're putting up these big houses. What about keeping the little ones that has a lot of property with it and fix them up for the homeless? You talk about the homeless all the time. You're trying to help them. How do you help them when you're building more and more large buildings around this city? That's not going to help the homeless. We're going to have more and more homeless because they can't afford even some of the houses we have now that are not high rises. So I ask you to please think about what you're doing to your city
Ms.
and our
Nickel,
citizens and our children.
Your 5 minutes are up. Thank you for your time tonight, Ms. Nickel. Any questions for members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight, Ms. Nickel. And that concludes scheduled public comment. We're moving to unscheduled public comment. Same rules apply, but you're limited to 3 minutes. Up first is Stephanie Brooks, here to speak about the open house. Good evening, Ms. Brooks. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Good evening, Stephanie Brooks, Hampton and Broadway. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody about the open house that Jen White and I are hosting on Sunday evening, this Sunday, after the Broncos game, which may or may not matter. It is going to be at the Guild Englewood, which is next door to the city center. You enter from the circle. If you can picture it in your mind, it's underneath the 24-hour fitness sign on the building next door. So you can park in the circle, you can park in the lot across the street, or you can park in the parking garage. We're going to have all 7 at-large candidates at this open house, and we're going to have attendees vote on which questions they would like them to answer. We'll have a list of prepared questions, and so people can actually vote on what they'd like to hear people talk about. And if you sign up with your email address, we will email out all the answers to all 10 questions if the candidates send that to us. So we're coordinating all this. Jenna's gonna go get Costco cookies, the good kind. So I highly recommend you sign up so we know how many cookies to buy. It starts at 6 o'clock. And we would like everybody to be there. That's all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brooks. I think any questions for members of council? I already have a question, so I may be jumping in here. What time does it start?
It starts at 6 o'clock. I have a flyer. I didn't put it out with the official stuff because, it's not city business, but it starts at 6 o'clock. It's scheduled to go till 9, but we have kind of some informal meet and greet and voting, then about an hour or so of questions and answers.
We're probably gonna have like an egg timer to get people to stop talking. We're not really sure on that part yet, but we're just trying to make it, casual, informal, but with some really well-established ground rules. So we've been in communication with all seven candidates for the at-large positions, and they've all committed to coming. We're really excited about this event.
Thank you so much. Member Woodward.
Will that be one cookie each, or?
Jim will give you 2 cookies. But it's actually, everybody can have 2 cookies, I'm sure.
And one other thing, Ms. Brooks, on the flyer, is that how you sign up? The information to sign up is on that
There is
flyer?
a QR code and a tiny URL on it as well.
Okay, perfect.
We've been posting on Nextdoor, but not everybody's on Nextdoor. So we wanted to come out here and let everybody know about it as well.
I appreciate it. Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, Ms. Brooks, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Is she okay to leave the flyers at the back of the room?
Yeah,
or-
that should be okay if you want to go ahead and leave some copies. I know that we have some copies from our earlier speaker as well.
All right,
but
yes, great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next is Kathleen Bailey with no topic given. Good evening, Ms. Bailey. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Good evening, Kathleen Bailey, Jason and Union. I'm here tonight to both caution and demand that this elected municipal city council body abide by the existing laws regarding your Code Next amendments and abide by the established municipal laws regulating a municipal council manager government. I am not a Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian, but I am a citizen that believes in laws. As elected members of the governing body of this existing established municipal government, your personal politics, your personal agendas, and your personal goals have absolutely no place in the governance of this municipality. And your failure to understand that has directly resulted in the recall elections that are being held tomorrow. And at just last city council meeting, you and your hired CM and city attorney arbitrarily chose to illegally ignore the existing law previously adhered to that required that you send your Code Next amendments back to P&Z. And your sole purpose for ignoring that existing law this time was simply to be able to vote to approve your version of Code Next prior to the recall election in order to prevent any potential new council from having any opportunity to make modifications to your personal Code Next agenda if recalls succeed. Again, your personal agenda is more important than law. Yet again, on tonight's agenda, you and your hired CM and city attorney have prepared a very dangerous, disturbing, precedent-setting ordinance that allows you to also ignore established municipal law that regulates a municipal council manager government in order to illegally give your hired CM the authority that is only authorized to be held by the elected city council body. Again, a very dangerous, disturbing, precedent-setting ordinance to allow you to do what you want and with your authority and your hired CM's power. And the fact that you are even seeking to be able to ignore these laws and 2 different laws doesn't even register in your brains as abuse of your positions of power and authority as members of an elected municipal council body. Again, I repeat, I am here tonight to both caution and demand that this elected municipal city council body actually abide by the existing laws regarding your Code Next amendments and abide by the established municipal laws regarding a municipal council manager government. And a final separate but related note, if it turns out that community development staff have recently authorized the subdivision of a single-family zone lot in anticipation of approval and final adoption of 400,000 plus Code Next document, the community development staff who approved that action should be fired immediately. Thank you for 3 minutes of your time.
Ms. Bailey, thank you for your time tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Up next is Michael Chisholm, here to discuss the library, I believe. Good evening, Mr. Chisholm.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Chisholm, 3000 block South Cherokee Street. Thank you, Mayor, council members. I just have a few brief comments. I've been out on the campaign trail, learning more about homelessness in Englewood, and I'm learning more about some of the intersections, different points in Englewood where things come together. Want to bring some things to your attention you may already know, but I'd like to emphasize some of these points. There's an intersection in this community between the homelessness situation and the library. The Englewood Library needs a plan. It's currently serving as a default outreach center for the homeless. An inordinate amount of time is being spent working on that function. Now, that's a noble function, but I would argue that that's not the purpose of the public library. And I would argue that because of that, a price is being paid, people are not going to the library, and it's not as user-friendly as it was intended to be. I would say the purpose of the library is being subverted. I would say that currently there's a risk and a liability issue to both staff and visitors at the library. I ask, when are the front doors going to be unlocked? Is the current situation due to the fentanyl drug abuse in the restrooms, is that an interim solution or is it a permanent solution? A lot of people have asked me that question. How long is this going to go on? I think it calls for a plan and a focus. And like I said, these things all intersect, and I think there's an opportunity for improvement, and I hope the council will take the lead on this and try to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chisholm, for your time tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for your time, Mr. Chisholm. Up next is Rick Emmelhines with no topic given. Good evening, Mr. Emmelhines. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Yes, Rick Emmelhines, Lipan Drive in Chenango. Good evening, members of Englewood City Council. First, I would like to thank you for your service to Englewood. No matter the outcome of tomorrow's election, I know each of you has dedicated a great amount of time and talent to this city, and I, for one, appreciate your dedication to Englewood. I'm here to address the current status of homelessness in Englewood. I recently attended a presentation by Lynn Ann Heisinger, Executive Director of the Severe Weather Shelter Network, which was hosted by Englewood Library. This was a fascinating and informative presentation highlighting how the network of locations in Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, Golden, Edgewater, Littleton, and Englewood jump into action when weather is a threat to our homeless population by offering temporary shelter and a meal at a variety of locations, primarily churches in the area. This is just one example of the network of nonprofits that has taken on the homeless crisis in our area. Sadly, I feel that our city's effort has not been as strong. The Englewood Strategic Plan does address homelessness, but somewhat tepidly. While creation of the Homeless Connect event and the support of the Tri-Cities Initiative and the Bridge House are positive steps forward, they really don't translate to an action plan. We as a city are dependent on nonprofit organizations to take the lead in addressing homelessness rather than putting together a real city-driven action plan where we could actually have more significant impact on homelessness in our community. I see this as a multi-phased process whereby the city increases its investment both monetarily as well as sourcing increased federal funding to take on homelessness. Ultimately, like Denver, I would like to see the city work to establish short-term and long-term housing, which gives our homeless neighborhoods stability and a first step toward climbing out of their situation. As I understand it, there are funds which Englewood has not tapped from the federal government that could assist with this process. Also, our library should not be our main source of outreach to the homeless population, but it has by default taken this on. Those services do not belong in a facility whose charter does not address this. The library action plan does not even mention the homeless, yet employees spend an inordinate amount of time assisting them, providing resources for them, and being friends to them. This is not what they were hired to do and not what they were expected to do in their day-to-day jobs. We need a better plan, and if I'm privileged to come on board in November, I would make this effort a priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmelhines, for your time tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Emmelhines. Up next is Kathy Naughton with no topic given. Good evening, Ms. Naughton. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Kathy Naughton, Jason and Union. This is what Code Next means for increased density in our neighborhoods. End lots in all of Englewood can be subdivided. ADUs are allowed in every neighborhood in Englewood with no parking or owner occupancy required. This alone could double the population in this city, already suffering from a tired infrastructure. 3 ADUs will be allowed in R2 and MU neighborhoods. Where duplexes are zoned, there will be fourplexes. Where fourplexes are allowed, there will be eightplexes. Courtyard housing with 6 to 8 houses can be built in any R2 neighborhood if the lot is 2,000 square feet or larger, and 3,000 square feet or larger lots in R1 neighborhoods. The potential density could include 60 or more courtyard houses in a single block, multiplied by the new definition of a household of 4 people and their legal dependents. There could be 240 people living on a street. You better increase the police force because parking is going to be a very volatile issue. Code Next paves the way for the developers and corporate ownership. Current homeowners will not be bulldozing their property to convert courtyard housing or $1 million fourplexes or 3 ADUs. Building 1 ADU will be out of reach for most homeowners, especially with the current interest rates. Code Next is so lengthy and confusing that it invites inconsistencies with development. It's open to allow variances fraught with different interpretations. Watching how the city has turned a cheek to allow the developers to bend the existing rules, I can only imagine what will be allowed in the future. Joe, it says in your current mailer, and I quote, Code Next is not bringing high density to single-family zoned areas in District 3. I ask, how is the potential for 200 and plus people on a city block not high density? It also says max height is reduced in single-family areas. You're only telling half the truth. It has decreased for single-family homes, but increased to 30 feet for multifamily dwellings, which makes it more favorable for a contractor to build. Your flyer says new lot rules encourage Englewood-size homes. I've not seen one Englewood-size home that's been built in this city. Show me one. Maybe you are referring to the upcoming 6 to 8 small courtyard houses. Deception, deception. One resident told me there was a big developer party in downtown Englewood after Code Next passed, and there was a big chunk of money donated, but she couldn't tell me exactly what group that went to. I'm curious, did any of you manage to make it to that celebration?
Ms.
All
Naughton,
of
your
you-
3 minutes are up. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight, Ms. Naughton. Up next is James Jordan with no topic given. Good evening, Mr. Jordan. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Well, first of all, I'm deaf in one ear, so I probably won't answer too many questions if you got them, because I won't hear you. I hate coming to city council. Last time I was here about 12 years ago, and I found out how venal the city of Englewood was at that time in some ways. But I'm here because there's a problem that maybe down the road will cost the city a lot of lawsuits. Some imbecile moved the bus stop from Lincoln and Girard over by Orchard Place and by Simon Center, which is in your district, sir. They moved it up to the hill. Now, what's wrong with moving a bus stop in the hill? Well, number one, in the wintertime, the snow melts and it comes down and it gets on the concrete and it creates black ice. And 1/3 of the population of Englewood are senior citizens, and that's from Dr. Cog. Now, the art bus drivers have told me that if that ice is there on the side, over at the one that was moved, there was a cutoff. This one, they won't be able to get traction. And when they lower the ramp to let people in wheelchairs, electric or otherwise, come off, they run a risk of falling over, and all of them run a risk of getting damaged heads. My case, I fell on black ice and broke my tailbone and I still have pain 7 years later. So I know what these guys are going to go through. I don't know who did it. RTD says the city did it. The city ordered it. I called the RTD, the head of it down there, and they told me the city of Englewood did it. So whoever did it didn't do a proper search of what would happen. And I think, one, I think you're facing some lawsuits if somebody does get hurt bad. Two, there's no reason not to move it back. There's a bench there, there's a cutout, and the trees block the sun in the summertime, so it isn't bad. And that's what I've got to say. It's just, I used to be a fire chief, a paid fire chief, and I see safety problems. And my group, I'm a president of a 501c3. We worked with the city of Englewood for 3 years, putting on a senior safety symposium at Malley. And this is really constituting a problem. So that's what I got.
Mr. Jordan, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for your time.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for your time, Mr. Jordan. I will say we actually may be bringing that up as part of the discussion tonight on one of the resolutions or one of the ordinances, I believe, that we're discussing. So we may get an answer tonight. So thank you for your time, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, I think in the long run, if I may address that real quick, in the long run, I've talked to a lot of people on that are on walkers, that do take the ART bus, and also number 12. And they're worried now that they are going to get hurt in the winter. So that's it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan, for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Stephen Strawbridge with no topic given. Good evening, Mr. Strawbridge. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Stephen Strawbridge, Amherst and Ogden. Most folks that show up have a reason to show up, and it's usually some sort of frustration. So you don't hear many thank yous. And so I want to play that role tonight. Thank you, council, for your work. Thank you for keeping the peace. I know you don't agree on every issue, but you have maintained a working relationship that is admirable and appropriate for your position. And you've kept our city from becoming more hostile and animated over tense issues. So I'm really grateful to each one of you. And I'm a fan of the ancient proverbs, a fan of the ancient wisdom, and the curses that people utter usually come back to eat them. And I don't want that for anybody, but I don't want the curses to eat you. So I just want to say something to each of you. Councilmember Newnenkamp, you are loved. Thank you for your work. Councilmember Ward, you are loved. Thank you for your work. Councilmember Anderson, you are loved. Thank you for your work. Mayor Sierra, thank you for your work. You are loved. Councilmember Kolnick, you are loved. Thank you for your work. Councilmember Woodward, you are loved. Thank you for your work. Councilmember Russell, you are loved. Thank you for your work. And I want to speak a blessing over you. You have put up with a lot. You've probably lost a lot of sleep, at least on Mondays, and many of you more than that. And God bless you for your work, and may his smile shine on you and cast away all the darkness from anger and bitterness that might be headed your way. And God be with you.
Mr. Strawbridge, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight, Mr. Strawbridge. Up next is Charles Woodridge. Did I pronounce the last name correctly? Woodridge. Good evening, Mr. Woodridge. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
You know, I don't even live in Englewood, but I spent hundreds of hours working here in Englewood, doing volunteer work, helping take care of people who don't have money to maintain their homes. I've worked shoulder to shoulder with Joe for several years, and I understand what's going here because as an artist, I've done a lot of work. Actually, I have a nice big sculpture in front of Littleton High School. I've got Eugene Elementary School. I've donated $500,000 worth of my artwork to charities around here. So I feel like I live in Englewood. I really do. And I don't make any money doing it. It's just because I think that's what should be done. And when I think about the things that are happening here, I think things are changing so quickly, so dramatically, that what we thought was ours is no longer ours. And that scares me and myself. I mean, I think that, we must be ready for the future. What we think is functioning isn't functioning. And I think that we have this idea of what a form is, what things should look like, what they should be like. But the function doesn't work anymore. Things are changing so quickly. I think we have to be really, really aware of it. And Joe, I've worked with Joe, just trying to play catch up for people that don't have money to even take care of their homes. And when I see that so often, people don't understand Joe's heart. They need to stop and look a little bit deeper at the function, not the form, but the function. What are we after here? We're not here just for ourselves. We're here for the whole. And I'm convinced that Joe sees it for the whole, not just for me, you, our equity in our homes. I mean, if you believe, I've always recognized truth by the outcome of the physical effects, not crafted words of politicking. I'm not so concerned about what is mine from a past perspective. Things are not the same. If you think your dollar has not federally been sold out, you are naive. We have all been sold out. So the real question is, what can we do as a whole? Joe has always seen the whole and understands what it is to create a physical motion through changes like working with the poor, working with the homeless, working with low-income housing issues. If we think that we're not going to have to deal with that, we're wrong. We're really mistaken. And I'm sorry to say this, but I think there's been a lot of slander going on here, because I know that Joe has a greater heart than anybody can see. I've worked with him, like I said, shoulder to shoulder for years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, Mr. Wooldridge. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. That concludes unscheduled public comments. No one else online. Member Nunenkamp, you are giving the response, so proceed when ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'll start with Ms. Dickerson, Ms. Singer, and Ms. Bailey together, who raised concerns about the city upholding our laws and our charter, and the question about if Code Next should go back to Planning and Zoning Commission. I appreciate your concern. These are important matters that we have to get right. And that's why we checked with our city attorney when we made that decision, and we went with the guidance of the city attorney that was not what was required with the Code Next piece of legislation. The city attorney is who's responsible to ensure that we adhere to all of our laws, we adhere to our charter, and it's her guidance that we take when we sit in these seats. So I appreciate your concern. We have done our due diligence, and that's why we made the decision that we made. Mr. Vorum, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for doing your research about this issue and trying to understand it more fully. The reason I asked if you had been on the Englewood Engaged website is because it's the best central source of information for all of the big projects that City Council is currently looking at. You can find the full history of the Code Next process on that website. Specifically, your questions about what now? What do we do? What's the implementation of this look like? I want to make a couple different distinctions. One is Title 16, our Unified Development Code, which is what we just updated. That's our code. It doesn't have an implementation around it. It just sets the boundaries about what can be developed in Englewood. Our implementation for how we care for the city, how we ensure we have the right amount of infrastructure, how we make sure that we have the correct amount of planning are things that we take care of through, one, our comprehensive plan, which guides all of our decisions in a long-range planning process for the city. We also have a strategic plan that guides how we invest in the city and where we spend time and effort and resource that's based on citizen feedback. And we have a series of master plans over the infrastructure of the city. Before we passed Code Next, we had a study session, and I pulled it up for you, on August 14th. And there's actually a presentation from our staff stuff that I asked for, and I said, before we make any changes to development guidelines in the city, I'd like to have a full briefing for the council on how we think about infrastructure to ensure that we can accommodate any changes that we might see in the city, and what are the regular touch points where we will ensure that things not only go through a review process, that if a developer would need to actually pay for additional infrastructure to support the development, that they would do that, and also that we would have the regular touch points year over year in our city to ensure that we're keeping up with the demand, the current population, the current tax base. So we've crossed those T's, we've dotted those I's. There's a series of plans that actually guide those decisions to ensure that we continue to be a sustainable city for the long term. So I would point you to that study session, which I think will answer the questions that you asked this evening. Coming back to my notes here, Ms. Weipert, thank you so much for being here and for your questions. I do want you to know that we do actually have a procurement policy in the city that guides how we bring on, how we make expenditures. From my understanding, this bringing on a consultant, a contractor, vendor, to run this election was incredibly difficult because of the timeline of where we are in the calendar, because we're so close to a general election. Many of the firms that run elections were already spoken for in other jurisdictions, and it was very hard to find even bids on this project because of where we are in the timeline and when the recall petitions were filed. Also, I know there's been some questions, well, why didn't you hold the election earlier? Because there was also a referendum this year. There's been an incredible amount of strain on our staff, and this is when we thought we could actually conduct this election appropriately. I know that there's also some recommendations from the community around using volunteers to run the election, using a hand count ballot process, but unfortunately that would not adhere to state law and was not an option for this election. I'd like to speak next to Ms. Beets, who I believe actually just stepped out of the room. I'm disappointed and sad that she feels the way that she does. I certainly don't share that opinion about what this legislation does, nor would that ever be an intent of this council. And I'm disappointed that that's how she feels, but understand that that's her perspective. Ms. Brooks, thank you for being here and sharing about the open house. Let's see here. Mr. Chisholm and Mr. Emmelhines, thank you for being here. As you are running for council and learning about what the city does and learning about what the city has already put into place, I hope you continue to explore some of the things that we are doing and the plans that we do already have. I'm actually the city council liaison to our public library board, and some of the things that I can tell you is that not only has this council developed a plan, we've actually passed increased legislation to have code of conduct standards and enforcement policies so that we can protect the library, keep it safe, keep our staff safe. We also have increased our funding for our library to ensure that our staff not only have the time and the resources that they need to ensure that the library can operate efficiently, but they also have some of the tools, the security, the sensors in the bathroom, some of those things as well. We also, in the budget that we're finalizing tonight, increasing some of our part-time librarians into full-time librarians in the library to ensure that we have less staff turnover, which creates consistency for our patrons in the library. The last thing I would say is that the library is there to serve all patrons of the city, regardless of their housing status. And when the city council did choose to increase the security at the library entrance earlier this year, we did choose to move the library to one entrance to ensure that everyone would go through the one secure entrance, and so that is the indefinite position at this time. Mr. Emmelhines, I'm glad that you heard from the Severe Weather Shelter Network. They're not only a nonprofit doing work in the city, they're a close partner with the city. We work very closely with how we work together. And the Tri-Cities Homelessness Plan actually does have an action plan. I hope you get a chance to review it and to read it. It's a 3-year plan. We have a full-time person working on that. The city of Englewood, along with the cities of Sheridan and the city of Littleton, actually received an award from Dr. Cog about how innovative and how groundbreaking this plan was for the metropolitan area. And I'm really proud of the work that we are moving forward. So I hope you guys can continue to explore some of the plans and the work that we're doing. Last thing I'll say here is that our need for transitional housing is significant. It is across the entire metro area, and that's something that the Affordable Housing Task Force will be looking at as well. Let's see, I think I missed Ms. Nickel. Ms. Nickel, thank you for being here. I agree with you. Our schools need more kids. Throughout this last year, we've had several citizens come and share with us and say, our schools can't take any more kids. And I knew that that wasn't true because I've been in close touch with our superintendent who was here tonight and members of our school board. Mayor Pro Tem Ward and I actually are liaisons to the school board, so we work quite closely with the school district. And I agree with you that we need more houses in Englewood that can house families with children. I don't think that the answer to Englewood's housing needs are a bunch of apartments that don't foster community. I'd like us to see more of what we call missing middle housing, which is housing that young families can afford so that our schools are full and vibrant. Those kinds of houses typically look more like condos and townhouses, which is what we don't have as much of in our housing stock in Englewood. And that's a specific issue that I'm hoping that the Affordable Housing Task Force can address, because we do need housing for families in the community, in our neighborhoods, that will be safe and effective for families. Moving on to the end of the list here, Ms. Naughton, thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. I certainly wasn't at any party with developers, so you can put me down as a no for that. Mr. Jordan, thank you for raising the bus stop issue to our attention. I look forward to reviewing that later this evening. And Mr. Strawbridge and Mr. Wooldridge, thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts with us tonight. The last thing I'll say as I close it out, I think I made it to everyone, is if this is the last chance I have an opportunity to do this, it's an incredible honor to be here, to listen to you, to follow up on all of your requests, to take you quite seriously. Ms. Whitebert, you said at the beginning that you want council to listen like we mean it, and I assure you that I do. I listen very intently. You should see the notes that I've taken in the last 2 years. I might not always agree with you, but I always listen to you, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Member Noonan-Camp. Anyone else? All right, and that concludes unscheduled public comment. Did we need a break before we got to, yes, it looks like we need a short break. Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's reconvene at 8:40, and I will be asking for an update on the air conditioning. Thank you very much, everyone. Members of council, if you could please be seated. Members of council, if you could please be seated. Members of council, if you could please be seated. All right, thank you, everyone. We are back. Unfortunately, not great news on the air conditioner. We are missing a, I guess the compressor pump. Do you want to give an update there, Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I apologize. We do have a confirmed condenser motor that is non-functioning. We're unsure if the cause is related to the weather event this evening or what exactly caused it. It was working earlier today. Techs have been up on the roof and are still troubleshooting. They do have the blower motor running to bring in ambient air from outside to try and cool the chambers and associated units down.
Thank you for the update, Director. You're going to have to lose that coach shortly, so. All right, moving on to agenda item 9. This is consent agenda items. I only have one item pulled, that is 9B4. Any other items that we want to pull for tonight? If not, can I get a motion to approve 9A1, 9B1 through 3, 9B5 through 14, 9C1 through 3?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick? Aye. Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on to 9B4. This is the intergovernmental agreement between City of Englewood and Arapahoe County. Member Russell, you have a question for Mr. Barbara.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now is it working? My question is, and I know I already got my answer, but I want the public to have the answer too. Are the current changes to the trolley route, do they have anything to do with this agreement with the Arapahoe County Board of Commissioners on the transit study?
No, they do not. These apparently are coincidental. Recently, there is a sidewalk reconstruction project south of the Maui Center, which required a short-term reroute of the trolley, but is now reverted back to its normal operations on its current route. And the city has no plans to change that route at this time. And the study that Arapahoe County is sponsoring is simply to look at the next 10 years and looking at ways to how can we improve transit service throughout our Arapahoe County communities. And that's going to be more like looking at vehicle technologies and ways to improve service, such as maybe increasing the number of days, the number of hours it runs per day, the potential for more frequency at peak times, and my personal favorite is maybe the potential of adding on an on-demand element to the service as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions from members of council?
I just want to say one other thing about it, because I really think we need to have.
Actually, Member Russell, can I stop you right there? Can we just get a motion on the table and then you can make your comment?
Okay,
thank you. Without any further questions, can I get a motion to approve 9B4?
I'll move 9B4.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. And Member Russell, go ahead.
And actually, maybe I should just wait on this till council member's choice, because I would like to do a council request on that item that came up during public comment.
From Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, from Mr. Jordan. I mean, I got the answer to my question here. That was what I was asking about. But I also think I need did the public know in advance that the route where they would get on the bus changed? So if we could find that out, and if we could make sure when that happens, that the public is notified that the where they're gonna load is changing. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any further comments any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Nunnenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barbaro. No public hearing items for tonight. We're moving on to 11A1. This is the proposed rate increase for the Stormwater Utility Fund. We have our Deputy Director of Engineering, Mr. Tim Hose. Good evening, Mr. Hose.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the introduction. So this item is an ordinance to formally authorize the Storm Drainage Fund rate increase for year 2024 that was included in the 2024 budget. I'll give you a little background on the stormwater rates. We did have a financial management consultant perform a rate study for us in 2019 to determine how much the rates would need to increase to fund the $30 million in storm drainage improvements that we're currently designing. And those rates were increased from years 2020 to year 2023. So the last of those was executed this year. So this rate increase we're requesting this year is inflationary only to keep up with the cost of construction. We see the cost of construction rising. We want to make sure that our spending power stays equal to what we need to build all the projects we plan to in the master plan. So that's the purpose of this increase. And then the rate increase is expected to generate about $238,000 additional revenue each year into the Stormwater Fund to help us keep up with the cost of construction so we can continue to execute projects and get them built the way we intend them to. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have on this item.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. Member Russell, you have the first question.
Yes, thank you. So when we approved the budget and raising the fees every year for a certain, I don't remember how far out we were looking. Were we looking at 10 years back at the beginning?
So it was just that 4-year plan to get the $30 million we needed to get the bond and the loan for the stormwater. So that this increase now is inflationary only to keep up with the cost of construction inflation each year. So the rates have increased enough to fund the $30 million in the bond and the loan to pay the annual payment. We've got the rates where they need to be to cover that now. And this is more inflationary, which we anticipate for the next few years just to keep up with the construction cost index that we see increasing every year.
So this is in addition to all of the rate increases we've had before.
That is
and
correct.
This is because of inflation.
Right, and it's much smaller, but it is due to inflation. It matches the construction cost index that's typically followed for tracking construction pricing, just to make sure we don't, as we bid out projects in future years, we don't lose our spending power as we go executing projects. We want to make sure we can still fully fund each project as intended.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from members of council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11A1?
I move to approve 11A1.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Nunnenkamp. Any further comments? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Now that I'm finding out that this is in addition because of inflationary costs, every homeowner is dealing with inflation in their own budget, and we have to live with that inflation if we're on a fixed income. And I'm struggling with this because as a city, we need to tighten our belt too, just like we as individuals, families do. So I'm not in support of this. I mean, even if we would go half of it and the city would take up half of it, but no, we go to the taxpayers. This is a fee, it is a tax increase that the public cannot vote on. I am opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Member Russell. Anyone else? Member Nunnenkamp.
Sure, I'll just say, I mean, I share Member Russell's concern. I take it quite seriously when we ask citizens for more money. I also know that our stormwater needs severe improvement. And so, Member Russell, would you be willing to share how you think we should pay for the master plan improvements that we've already planned for if we don't raise the fee? If there's another idea, I'm open to entertaining that.
We'll go to Member Anderson without any answer there. Go ahead, Member Anderson.
Well, first, I think this is probably a question. We have two resolutions or two contracts up for approval under 9C or 11C 1 and 2 that are related to the South Englewood Flood Reduction Project. Are these funded out of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund ultimately?
Yes, that is correct. Both of those are funded out of the Stormwater Fund.
And so the fee supports the financial, the ability to pay the, I assume I think we have approved, or we approved bond. Did we do bonding for these two?
Bonding and a loan as well.
And so we have to be able to pay those bonds back and the loans on the ability to actually, this is the South Englewood Flood Reduction Project where we've had some serious citizen feedback that we need to do something about this, and I've taken this very seriously. I'm glad to see this finally coming through to fruition, but I do not know if we would be able to pay for these upcoming projects if we didn't have sufficient fees to support the payments that we need to be able to fund these projects. So I'm supportive of this tonight so we can continue forward with this.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Anyone else? Go ahead, Member Woodward.
I wasn't on council for the fee study or the fees when it was done, but I would suggest to council in the future that we're looking at a more of an increase than what is expected. I mean, because who knew that we were at this time that we were having a pandemic and then interest rates were going to go up, trying to slow down the economy and all kinds of things that were going on. So I think we've got to look at it in a different way in the future when we're looking at interest and inflation. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Russell.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director Host. Up next is 11B1. This is the ban of live cat and dog sales. Do we have City Attorney Niles online?
Yes.
Hello, City Attorney Niles. I know that this is second reading, so I don't think that there's an additional overview that you need to give. I just wanted to make sure you were online to answer any questions if we happen to have them. Any questions for the second reading on the ban of live cat and dog sales at retail? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11B1?
I'll move 11B1.
Thank you so much, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Neunenkamp. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Nay.
Member Neunenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Councilmember Anderson and Councilmember Russell.
Thank you so much. Moving on to 11B2. This is the council bill designating city manager's contract authority. We have the city attorney, Tamara Niles, again. Any additional questions for our city attorney on this item? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11B2?
I'll move 11B2.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any comments? Go ahead, Member Russell.
I appreciate Miss Bailey's concern, and actually, I will be voting no this time because city staff has known for the last 2 or 3 months the possibility of this, and there was opportunity to bring these things forward. And so I think that probably it's it is what it is. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll be voting yes. I think this is something that we as responsible council members and citizens have to take a look at and say, common sense says that you would do something like this and give permission to the city manager to do this, regardless of what else is said. And I think if you look, like I think the city attorney has done, into the law and stuff, that was the outcome of what was discussed in that. So I'm a yes vote fully for this, and hope nothing happens that where we have to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm a yes on this as well. Well, I'm sensitive to Ms. Bailey's comments, and early on I was hesitant to pass this particular council bill. I have reviewed the charter provisions, and all of the relevant charter provisions don't prescribe a specific amount. They prescribe a starting amount. So for example, Charter 113, which covers competitive bidding, says before the purchasing officer makes any purchase of supplies, materials, or equipment in excess of $25,000 or as prescribed by ordinance, the purchasing officer shall give ample opportunity for sealed competitive bidding. There are other charter provisions, including Charter 116, which similarly specify amounts and then contain the clause or as prescribed by ordinance. What we are doing here, well, I wish that we did not have to do it. We are prescribing by ordinance a purchasing limit for the city manager that is different than the purchasing limit currently prescribed by ordinance. It is a perfectly legal process that comports perfectly well with our charter authority, including, I'll point out, Charter 19, which specifies that the legislative affairs of the city shall be vested in council. With that, I believe that while I understand the objection to the temporary override, I don't believe that the legal argument holds water, and therefore I will be voting for this tonight, because in order to ensure the health and welfare of the city over the next 2 months, regardless of the outcome of any election, this is something that we must do.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just really quickly, I'm going to be voting against this again tonight. I gave my reasons in the previous meeting on the, what day was that, the 17th or the 18th? But it still stands, so I will be voting against this tonight. And with that, can we please vote?
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp.
Aye.
Member Kolnick.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Member Woodward.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Councilmember Russell and Mayor Sierra.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. Moving on to 11C1. This is the motion to approve a contract with Instuform Technologies. I probably pronounced that incorrectly. For the South Englewood Flood Reduction Site 8 project. We have Deputy Director of Public Works, Tim Host, here tonight. Good evening.
Good evening again. Thank you for the introduction. Just wanted to start with, I'm very proud and happy to finally be here to present a construction contract for this project. This project has taken about 4 years to finally bring to fruition there. We started with a lot of studies to determine what was causing the issues in the South Englewood storm drainage basin. And after that, we did look at the funding we needed to fund the improvements we needed. And we, as we recently spoke about, we raised the rates as necessary to acquire the funding through bonds and the loan so we could have the money up front to be able to do this work. We commenced the final design, and then we had to find a property to build the detention pond that's included with this project, and we searched for that, and we were able to successfully negotiate and acquire that property. And then we were finally able to go to construction bids, and I'm happy to say tonight we've got those bids in, and I'll go over a presentation here to show you the results of that and the cost that's involved in constructing the South Englewood Flood Reduction Project. So started here with the presentation here. Is it going to work on me?
I'm guessing you're going to have to cycle quite a bit through these slides.
Doesn't even want to turn it on. There we go. Uh-oh.
Deputy Director, you are aware it's a hot room, right?
It's definitely hot. It's getting hotter with this thing not working too.
Go ahead.
Oh, so button's worn out. All right. Go to the next one there. All right, so I'll just give you a little background context here. As I mentioned, the storm event from July 2018 raised awareness of deficiencies in the South Englewood drainage basin that we needed to address. So we did commence a feasibility study and kind of an analysis of the issues there and what was causing the problems. And we did determine that the Oxford outfall pipe shown on the right there, running down Oxford to the Platte River, was indeed smaller than it needed to be to carry all the water required to drain the basin. So we commenced that study to determine that and realized that without an increase to the pipe or an additional area to detain more water, that we would continue to have this problem. So we, without the improvements, obviously it would be a high-profile area and we'd still have flooding in the area. And then the recent sinkhole on Oxford Avenue was another result of that pipe being undersized and not able to carry the water it needs. So this project should finally alleviate that issue so we don't have those problems there anymore. And so what we have done, the project actually has two components. So the presentation will go over both of the contracts we bid out. We actually bid out two separate contracts. One is for the pipe lining on Oxford Avenue. There's going to be a new pipe liner in there that's smoother, and basically it's a brand new pipe inside the pipe, so it won't rely on the old corrugated pipe anymore. It'll be a brand new pipe that's smoother and can carry more flow and is structurally sound, that it won't have any leaks or corrosion in the future. And then the second project is the actual regional detention pond at Radcliffe and Navajo, along with the piping from the existing Rotolo Park detention pond to the new pond, and then the outlet pipe from the new pond to the existing downstream pipe in Oxford Avenue. So, purpose of the project is obviously decrease the flooding in the South Englewood Basin, Rotolo Park area, particularly the area downstream of Rotolo Park, and increase the capacity of the storm sewer network by providing a regional detention pond. And then obviously the construction of the pond and the lining of the Oxford outfall pipe are the two components we're recommending for award of construction this evening. And this project will decrease the likelihood of the future sinkholes in Oxford Avenue, and then also ensure that the roads can stay open the whole time. We won't have to close Oxford anymore for any kind of sinkhole or any corrosion issues once we get this liner installed. Oh, we'll move it to the next one. So here's the two contractor cost proposals we got. One was right on track with what we thought, and the other one was a little bit higher than we expected. But the lining of the Oxford pipe is the first one there, and that's we got the two bids there. The In Situ Form Technologies was about $3.5 million, which is right about where we expected that to come in. So we were quite happy with that, and we've that's been budgeted, and we were ready to spend that. The pond and the connection piping there definitely came in higher than we expected. It's a pretty unique project there. Nobody's ever built a 46,000 cubic yard pond and then an 87-inch diameter pipe that's about 30 feet deep. So we knew it was going to be a bit of we're trying to find the closest comparisons we can, but we knew it was going to be a little bit of a unknown going into this because there really isn't a lot of historical data on how much it costs to build something like this. So the bad news is it came in higher, but the good news is we do have enough funding in the Stormwater Fund to afford the $18 million. We were able to increase our loan amount a little bit to be able to fund this entire project there and not have to scale it back at all. So even though the bids are higher, we still have funding available that we can fully cover the cost of both of these projects. So let's see here. There we go. So here's the budget here. We've got to show the two projects together are about $20 million, and that is available in the Stormwater Fund to be able to fully construct and build both of these projects and not have to raise rates additionally beyond the inflationary one we did. We've got the funding secured through the bond and the loan that we can afford to build both projects and build them as intended and as designed. So let's see here. It doesn't want to work. So schedule we're looking at, assuming a contract award this evening, the contractor is ready to start in November, and they'll start with the way we have it set up. We've got the two contracts, so the pond and pipe contractor will start, as well as the lining contractor, both starting in November. And we expect the lining work in Oxford Avenue to be done by next March, and then the pond and the pipe should be done by the end of next year, based on the schedule we're seeing. So we should, by end of next year, have both of these constructed and finally be able to address the South Englewood drainage basin deficiencies. So let's see here. So with that, we just recommend the approval of the two separate contracts for this work. The dollar amounts on this slide are the actual dollar amounts with the 10% contingency we have built in. So the contract amounts are actually 10% less than each of those amounts shown on the screen there. But we do, as I mentioned, have the sufficient funding in the stormwater fund to pay for this. We have the cash on hand to do it. So we are recommending approval of both of these contracts so we can begin the construction of this project. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have about the bids or anything.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director, for your presentation. And just for reference for members that are listening online, you covered the presentations for both C1 and C2, but right now we are only considering C1 as part of this. So thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem, first question.
As I look through these plans, are we digging up places where we have previously done work to repair sinkholes, like on the west side of Santa Fe on Oxford?
There's one area we do have to excavate to get the liner in the pipe. The liner is so big they can't put it through the manhole, so we do have to excavate, I think it's 20, 30 feet of pipe so they can get the liner in both ways. So there's gonna be a short piece that gets sleeved back in once they're done. It's just the liner is so big they can't, they usually will insert it through the manholes, but in this case, it's just too large to be able to do that.
So we've replaced those pipe sections within the last 5 years. Why are we lining them? Why do they need any work?
Well, the sections that are lined, it's really the connection points, and the pieces that got replaced are pretty short. So I mean, you save a little bit, but the cost to cut the liner and to terminate it at each end is more than just lining straight through it. We did look at that to consider that if we don't have to line. Like one savings we do have is the stuff east of Santa Fe with that sinkhole we had on Oxford. We don't have to line that anymore. That was originally part of the lining project. Now that we put the concrete pipe in there, that doesn't need lining anymore. So that has somewhat offset the cost of this project a little bit, because that was formerly a piece of corrugated pipe that's now concrete pipe over there.
Okay, so even after we line this, we're still going to have multiple different types of materials meeting each other all along this route.
Well, no, it's basically, it is concrete, and then there's steel under Santa Fe, and then there's a short piece of concrete, then it's all gonna be this new liner. So there is a bit of a transition there, but it's either concrete, steel, or the new liner. There will be no corrugated pipe left, and the corrugated pipe is the only pipe we've had the failures on.
Okay.
That's the pipe that's failing. So the pipe that's still there is the resilient, durable pipe that should not corrode or have these types of failures in the future.
And we're confident that we're not gonna have problems in seams similar to what we had a couple months ago.
That's correct. So we are planning to line across those seams. Like you said, that is a weak spot, and we are gonna line across those seams, so it'll go into across the transition, so we will not have a dissimilar joint there. It'll all be lined across there. That's something that we're gonna have. So when you look at the inside of the pipe, you won't see those joints anymore. It'll be just one continuous piece of liner.
Great, thank you.
Member Russell.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions because I heard you say, and I remember reading in the packet that there were some areas where there were smaller pipes. Were all of those fixed? Were larger pipes put in where it went down to a smaller pipe and then went back up to a larger pipe?
So I think there's one area that we have a bit of a bottleneck there, and that has been accounted for in the design of the pond and the liner pipe, that we do have the capacity without having to upsize that pipe. We can line through it, and the smoother liner does give us more capacity, so we shouldn't have any issue with any of the sizing or anything. The as-built condition has been included in the design to make sure what is in Oxford can be lined, and we don't have to upsize anything there. We can line it, and the new smoother pipe wall will handle the capacity coming out of the pond.
Okay, and I know that there has been a question in the past about lining pipes and how does it stick to the corrugated pipe? What happens is it glued, or I saw something in here that says cured in place. Does that mean they put like a balloon in there and it gets hard?
So it is actually a water cure. They fill it full of hot water to cure it, and it expands the liner up against the existing pipe, and they will have to sandblast the existing liner off the corrugated pipe to make the new liner stick, but that has been calculated into the cost and everything to prepare that surface so that when that liner gets expanded, it will conform to the outer pipe and stick to it, and there's no concern that it'll slide or move or anything. It'll lock in place and should be there forever.
Is there a guarantee on this?
There is. It's a very common practice, yeah, that's part of the in situ form process. It is it does sound interesting, when how can you make a pipe stick in a pipe? But it is a resin material that they use, and it does lock into there very tightly. And it's been used on storm sewers and large diameter things all over the country, all over the world. Actually, they've done this. They do it a lot of places. So we're fortunate to have In Situ Form as our contractor. They kind of invented this technology, and they're very, very skilled at it and able to design a system that's going to last for a very, very long time.
Well, and I can understand the technology when you're putting it in a water pipe because there's constantly water in there, putting pressure, keeping the liner conformed to the pipe. But, if it dries out in dry periods of time, could it collapse? Could the liner collapse? And we wouldn't necessarily know it until it rained a lot again.
No, this is a fiberglass resin that gets as hard as a rock when it's done. It will never collapse. It truly is a structural pipe within a pipe. It does not rely on the outside corrugated pipe or anything. So if that corrugated pipe decided to corrode away, we would still have a perfectly good pipe that we could use. We went with the higher cost liner that is an actual pipe within a pipe that is going to be basically a brand new pipe without having to dig all that old pipe up. We can just line it and have a new pipe that's smoother and more durable and resilient for the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions for members of council? We'll go one by one here. So with that, can we get a motion to approve 11C1?
Move to approve 11C1.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comments? Member Nudenkamp.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say congratulations to being to this point. This is, I think, going to be a huge asset for our community. It's been a long time coming. It's been a lot of community conversation, and this is something that I'm so proud to have the opportunity to vote for, and just thank you for you and your team and your department, how much diligent work you have done over the last few years to get us to this place that not only will improve the quality of life in Englewood, but our fundamental safety, and I'm very grateful for your work.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Nudenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much. Moving on to 11C2. Presentation was given. Can I get a motion to approve 11C2?
Move to approve 11C2.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any further comments? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Actually, I'd like to ask some questions. Do you know how many developers we have not enforced putting a retention pond on their property? I know that Oxford Station, that was not enforced. Oxford Vista, was it enforced there? The Kmart property, we did not enforce it there. So do you have any idea how many of developers we did not make them do a retention pond?
So the only ones I'm aware are the Oxford Station, and the Kmart parcel was a partially detention site just due to the condition of the site and the way the redevelopment happened. They couldn't physically fit enough detention. So those are the only two I know that did get a decrease from the standard. The others, as far as I'm aware, the other one you mentioned, that was kind of before my time. I'm not quite aware of that one. But as far as I know, our new drainage criteria manual requires that of every site. There's no negotiation or anything. You do it or you don't, right? If you can't do it, you can't develop is kind of where we're at now. We've enhanced that requirements where there's no real gray area anymore. It's like you have to do it if you're going to develop.
So Oxford Vista, I think, is just south of Oxford Station.
Oh, is that okay?
The new one.
Okay.
And did we make them build a retention pond?
I do believe that has detention. I do remember seeing that one, and I do believe that one did include underground detention in the parking area. I think it's just that Oxford Station was the one that, due to the position of it and being so far down on the outfall, I think the theory was that their drainage would clear before the rest of the drainage hit that basin there. At the time, that was the thinking. That's what would happen. So that was why that was done that way.
Well, it could be, but in hindsight, it may have been that added to the sinkholes every time also. But I just want to know, we have in place now where developers have to build retention ponds if they're going to develop high density, is that correct?
That's exactly correct. And we did beef up that language in the drainage criteria manual to kind of close that loophole, because there was a bit of a gray area where you could argue, you know, a special case or something. So we've clarified that to where it's very clear that it has to be done. If you're going to scrape off an entire site, you got to give us detention. So we've been able to enforce that a lot easier now on new developers.
Okay, just because building these retention ponds, and they need to be built, but I don't want the city have to pay the expense that we're letting developers slide by on. So I just want to make sure that in the future, we make sure all of the retention ponds get built. Thank you.
Member Anderson?
I just wanted to make some comments on finally getting this project going. I remember January of 2020, one of my first council meetings, we had a discussion on this exact problem, that this pipe was too small along Oxford, and they even taped up on the wall 3 10 by 7 foot box culverts that would be required if we were going to actually carry it all down the pipe, carry it all down Oxford without any detention. And we've had, I went through and counted it up, 30 council meetings where we've addressed this issue over the last several years. Everything from, you know, land acquisition to, the studies that had to be done in preliminary to this, and to finally see this come to fruition is really rewarding for me, because this was a big issue shortly before I came on council, and to finally know that we are going to have a safer South Englewood Basin because of this, be able to carry that 25-year storm. Tremendously thankful to all the work staff has done on it, the consultants that we've hired over the years, and multiple, now probably three different councils over the course of time as well. So yeah, exciting day, and thanks for all the work you've done on it too as well, Mr. Host.
Thank you.
Member Woodward?
I would like to also show my appreciation for what is being done here and the time it took, and actually things did move fairly quickly when you consider the scope of what's being done. And I'm looking forward to seeing it happen in District 2, where the problem goes back even longer, going into Harvard Gulch, and seeing that getting taken care of, because I think that goes back 30, 40 years, and they're still having flooding over there. So it's not to the extent that we were seeing here, but it's still there. So hopefully that's kind of the next thing that could be done. And I understand that without Denver's cooperation, we can't get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I want to thank you as well, Deputy Director, and everyone in Public Works, current and past, that put their effort into this, all the consultants that we've worked with over the years in terms of just making sure we get this right. I want to say that this might be the biggest outflow of dollars in terms of the project itself up to this point. I can't recall if there's going to be a bigger outlay in the future, but I know that this was one of the biggest puzzle pieces in terms of getting it right. So do want to thank you all for the work on this and just the dedicated hours to getting us to this point. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. It was a lot of work to get here, and I appreciate you thanking the whole team. It took an army to get this built. It was a lot of work and back and forth and up and down and in and out to finally get to here. It's very satisfying to me as well. This was a defining career achievement for me. I grew up in Englewood, and I really appreciate being able to help Englewood fix their storm sewer system with the knowledge I've gained over my career. It's been very satisfying for me, and I'm looking forward to it getting built and serving not only this generation, but future generations of Englewood residents for many years to come. So it's very satisfying. I appreciate that.
So, thank you. And with that, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Nunnenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director, for that as well. Up next is Director of Finance Jackie Lowe here to talk about the 2024 City of Englewood fee and rate schedule. Hello, Director.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff recommends council to approve the comprehensive 2024 schedule of service, license, and permit fees and utility rates resolution. I don't have a PowerPoint slide presentation, but in your package, you can find 2 attachments. Attachment A includes the comprehensive 2024 schedule, service, license, permit fees, utility rates, including attachment A. Attachment B includes the currently charged but not previously listed in the comprehensive schedule. So there are 2 different schedules. And earlier tonight, council approved the first reading of an ordinance to authorize the stormwater utility rate increase. And so after council's approval, the 2024 comprehensive schedule will be updated at a later date to approve an ordinance to increase the stormwater rate in 2024. And what's the difference? There are 2 types of changes in the schedule. One is a fees change, charged but not previously included in the comprehensive schedule. Here's a list. First, the city clerk's office passport application fees for the program implemented this year. Second, parks, rec, library, and golf department room rental fees and program fees. Third is the public works department facility room rental fees. They are charged but not previously included in the schedule. The second change is the major changes to the following funds and programs. General fund related to the Parks, Rec, Library, Golf Department. You can see all the programs changes listed here. And Golf Course Fund, they want to increase some charges like the broken tee, green, fee and cart rental fees. And water and sewer funds, this is season for them to increase their rates. And the directors are either in person or online to answer any questions you may have. And for the 2024 budget, I want to also list what do those changes, how will these changes affect the 2024 budget? In your package, you can see how the rate increase will affect the Parks, Rec, Library, Golf Department, their revenues. And also Golf Course Fund, Water Fund, Sewer Fund, and Stormwater Drainage Fund, how the rate increase will affect 2024 budget. So I just want to stop here and see if council members have any questions related to the fee presented in the schedule.
Thank you so much, Director Lowe, for that presentation. Member Russell.
Thank you. So my question is, were these percentage increases? I mean, because I would see $1 and then you get some that are in the thousands of dollars in the same department. Was it a percentage fee increase, or did they just subjectively pick how much they were going to raise each one individually?
That's a good question. I believe each department's different. Do you have very specific question for any department?
I don't remember where it was, and I don't think I earmarked it.
I have a feeling probably the rate increase, and I would calculate the percentage increase.
Okay.
But if you have more specific questions, you can ask directors to answer your question.
Okay, I'll look through here. One question that I do have. So we voted on the stormwater increase in a previous bill. So we're voting on it in here again? I mean, it will be, or is it just included in here?
No, good question. Most of the rates and fees are approved by resolution except the utilities and stormwater rates. So this is the stormwater rate approved by council through the first reading. Then after 14 days, we'll do this for the second reading.
And then once we do that, it'll automatically be included in this.
We're going to update the schedule again.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll look through here and see if I can find specifically something. Thank you.
Member Woodward.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have one request, and I don't know if it comes from you or if it comes through the clerks. I can't read any of this. Most of this whole document are numbers. And I've got reader glasses on that are pretty strong. I can't see them. And I'm wondering if maybe changing the page to a landscape would expand that. If, that would be I assume maybe the clerk when they're doing it.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that in other stuff coming from finance where I can get down there and I literally need a magnifying glass and it's just real hard to get to see that.
Yeah. In the future, definitely we can coordinate with the clerk's office if we can do this landscape as a hard copy.
Yeah, and everybody else, all the Gen Xers and millennials are on their computers, and then us boomers down here have paper and reader glasses.
Hey now, Member Woodward. So. But to answer your question, the price for your yoga classes did go up, Member Woodward. So if that's what you were wondering.
That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Yeah, for tonight, we'll be able to access online the agenda item online? No? Okay. In the future, we'll coordinate with clerk's office to make the legal size to incorporate all the numbers in one page.
Thank you.
No, it's a good point, though. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Member Woodward. I do think that we got to figure out a better solution to providing those price increases. Any further questions from members of council? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C3?
I'll move 11C3.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any further comments or questions? All right, seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving
you.
on to, thank you so much, Director Lowe. Moving on to 11C4, we have our EDDA Executive Director, Hilary Portell. I believe you may be online here to discuss the proposed 2024 budget approval for the EDDA. So, Ms.
Good
Portell,
evening.
there you are. I see you. Good evening.
Thank you for having me here tonight. The Board of Directors and staff of the EDDA recommend that City Council approve by motion the proposed EDDA 2024 budget. This is in follow-up to the presentation I gave on September 25th in the study session for City Council. And I'm available tonight to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Executive Director Portell. Any questions for Ms. Portell? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C4?
I'll move 11C4.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Neunenkamp. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp?
Aye.
Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you for staying online, Executive Director Portell, and thank you very much for all the work that you put into this budget as well, you and the entire EDDA committee, so thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Perfect, and we are now moving on to Mayor's Choice. I guess I will keep it brief. Well, I'm not sure what the results of tomorrow night are going to be, but it's been a pleasure working with everyone here on council. Appreciate what we've done with staff, and I really love what we've done. I don't even think City Manager Lewis is online right now, is he? But I just want to thank the staff that he's put together in place. It's kind of fitting that we basically started voting on some of the major infrastructure projects tonight, as well as over the past year. But I'm glad to get that done, and it's just been a pleasure working with everyone. I'm, hoping it's not my last night, but I know it's kind of sounded that way. But no, I just wanted to just give my thanks and my gratitude to just the work that everyone on staff has put forth. And, you know, just know that it's been very appreciated, just what you guys have done. So thank you very much. Council member's choice. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just have a couple of follow-ups to public comment. You know, first, it seemed like folks didn't realize that I voted no on the Code Next package. You know, to the extent that they think that I had certain motivations for doing that, you know, I would just ask that anyone judge me and my actions by my votes, instead of trying to crawl inside my scattered brain and figure out what's going on inside there. You know, the other thing that I did want to clarify is some of my comments regarding sending things back to P&Z. First of all, I'll freely admit that one of the pitfalls of a non-lawyer lecturing on a somewhat complicated legal subject is that he will get things not necessarily correct. I use the term ridiculous result. I didn't say stupid result, which I have been misquoted as saying on various social media and email applications. The actual correct term, based on the case law that I've been able to locate, is absurd result. So I was not correct. Ridiculous, no, it's absurd result. It's a legal doctrine that, as far as I can tell, goes back as far as the 1800s. But more importantly than that, and maybe that was just an unnecessary distraction, is the direct wording in the charter. I can understand how a good faith interpretation can be made that says that if we make any changes to something that comes to us from P&Z, then P&Z has to review it again before it comes back to us. I don't read the charter with that interpretation, and I base that on a couple of charter provisions. First of all, Charter 19, which vests the legislative affairs of the city in council. And secondly, Charter 58, which spells out the P&Z Commission's duties. Specifically, and I read this in the last session, the recommendations of the commission shall not be binding on the council. However, no general city plan, nor zoning ordinance, nor modification, amendment, or revision thereof shall be considered by the council unless the same shall have been first submitted to the commission for its examination and recommendation. The commission shall conduct public hearings as they deem necessary. I can't say it much better than Member Newnenkamp said it, as usual, but the commission reviewed what came before us for a vote, prior to it coming before us for a vote. To the extent that we modified it, that's our right and arguably our duty as council members. And to lock us into a circular process where anytime we make a change to something that's adopted by P&Z, we have to send it back to P&Z for their approval, which they may or may not give, cedes the authority of this council to make legislative decisions to a board that arguably reports to this council. P&Z is an independent quasi-judicial board whose members are appointed by council and serve at the will of council. So I can't draw the interpretation of the charter that I'm being asked to draw. That's not because I desire any specific result or outcome, and unfortunately people will just have to take my word for it. I would like to believe that I have acted with integrity for the duration of my time on this dais, and I intend to do that going forward. Some parts of the charter are more specific and clear than others. This part happens to be open to interpretation or could be open to interpretation. I am confident that our city attorney's advice and interpretation is correct. And I'm also confident that based upon the extent of the legal knowledge that I do have of the absurd result doctrine, our process would hold up, and any argument that we should have sent this back to P&Z would fall. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you for indulging that monologue. I hope it's clear to the voters of District 4. Anyone who has any questions, please feel free to call me or email me.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you. I have probably 3 council requests, and one of them is when I was actually, all of these came from my walking this last week. The south sidewalk of Nassau between Washington and Clarkson. there is road grader damage all the way down the sidewalk. I think it occurred probably in the spring when they were cleaning up ice, and there are big hunks taken out of that sidewalk. And it looks really bad. I think probably the entire sidewalk should be replaced on the south side of Nassau between Washington and Clarkson. So I'd like that looked into. Also, 4118 South Pennsylvania, it's sold, and the city is cutting the grass. Why is the city cutting the grass? And then there's one more question about what are the requirements for a property to get a do not block driveway sign? Because people always stop in front of his driveway at a stop sign. And there's times that he can't get out of his property.
Thank you, Member Russell.
Thank you.
The one earlier tonight regarding the news stop, it was about communication, right? So when were people notified, or were they notified? Was there something else that I may have missed on that?
No, that was mostly it. I mean, because we got word tonight that it was temporary and they're moving
Right.
back. But I don't think that the public was notified that they were moving the bus stop,
Okay.
which also becomes problematic, especially for handicapped people.
So both sides of that communication, were they notified prior to the stop being moved, and were they notified that it's now back in place?
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Anyone up, Member Woodward?
Yeah, I have one request, and that would be Pearl and Nassau, the corner going north. It would be the south west corner. I've had my own experience, but I actually had complaints from two different neighbors on this, that the hedge around the corner is so tall and so right out to the sidewalk, you can't see the street when you stop at the stop sign, and it's getting pretty dangerous, and they're wondering why code hasn't picked that up. And I've noticed it in other places in District 3 between Logan and Clarkson. So I wonder if we could have code take a look at some of that stuff.
Anything else, Member Woodward?
That's it.
Perfect. I got that one now down as well. All right, with that, City Manager's report.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Noonan-Camp. Go ahead, Member Noonan-Camp.
Okay, I'll be very brief. I just wanted to echo the mayor's comments. As we all know, there's an election tomorrow. And if this is the last chance I get to be on this dais, I just want to say it's been such an honor to work with each one of you. I'm so proud of the work of this council over the last 2 years, and I think that the council that we have truly represents the diversity of our city. We have a council as diverse as our city is. These are hard challenges, and leadership is making the best decisions you can with the information you have at the time. And I think that we've done that, and I'm really proud of what we've done together. I'm really grateful for the staff and how they've served the city through challenge and through peaceful times. And yeah, hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. City Manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A couple things to report on tonight. It was mentioned in the Friday report, but just an update. We have been included in the FEMA declaration. We are pursuing funding for reimbursement on the sinkhole. FEMA will cover approximately, if approved, 75% of the cost, and the state will also kick in 12.5%, which leaves us with just the remaining 12.5%. So we're going to continue to push on that, and we'll keep council updated. But we have started the process and are moving that ball forward. As you're also probably aware, milling and paving on Broadway is well underway. We have moved north of Tufts now, and the contractors continue to make good progress pending weather. Overall, the 2023 mill and paving overlay project is approximately 25% complete. With the total amount spent to date about $1.3 million out of the contract. Dartmouth, Broadway, and Floyd alone are a little over $2 million, And when those wrap up, those will consume 41% of the total contract. Pending weather delays, we do anticipate all the mill and paving to be done before the end of November. So the contractor's going full steam ahead to get that done. Update real quick on the concrete utility project. To date, we're approximately 70% complete on that. We've spent a little over $700,000 out of the $1 million total contract amount. And we expect the contractor there to wrap up the southwest portion of Zone 5, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, again, pending weather. And that concludes the updates I had.
Good updates. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Just one question, Director Rochelle, can you just give us a brief version of what it takes to secure money from FEMA?
Yes, so the FEMA process, we're going through that with the county. So we have to apply for an application through FEMA. We're coordinating with our internal team on that and finance. We have to provide documentations for hours spent. We also have to provide documentation for our on-call contract, that we followed that contract. We followed the city's procurement processes for emergency funding. We have to get all of that to FEMA. They will review it and then confirm that we are in compliance with their standards for that. They won't cover things like idle time for equipment. We've confirmed in our contract that our contractor did not bill us for idle time. And the rates that the contractor are billing us, we have daily logs for those hours and time and material. Those are consistent with our contract for on-call, which is exactly what FEMA's looking for. So this will be many of our first time in the city going through this, but we feel like we've got our ducks in a row and we have a very strong chance of securing FEMA funding.
And did we have to do anything to secure the disaster declaration, or did that happen outside of our request and authority?
So we actually were I'll say a large contributor to getting that disaster declaration. There was a threshold. I apologize, I don't recall the amount, but we were down to somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 countywide to meet that threshold. We supplied several memos of our current invoicing to the county to justify where we were at. FEMA had estimated our Oxford repair in the neighborhood of $700,000. We pushed back and said, no, we're actually closer to $800,000, $900,000. Near the end of the process and discussion, we actually received invoicing that put us up closer to $800,000, and we still have one more invoice to go. So our estimates are going to be well above FEMA's, and I believe are what helped push Arapahoe County, in addition to all the other projects that are going on as a result of that disaster timeline for the county to achieve that disaster declaration.
Thank you for that. And now that project's all buttoned up, I want to thank you and your team for your diligent hard work on making sure that project got done correctly.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Acting City Manager?
Just one last thing. First, I want to apologize and say thank you for bearing with us through the temperatures in the room. We'll make sure that this is rectified as soon as possible by replacing motors on the roof, and fingers crossed it's not a bigger issue as we investigate it.
Please fix it for a member Noonan Camp for next week. So.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, and with that, we are now adjourned. Everyone have a good evening. See you next week.